Okay, hello everyone, welcome to another episode. The title is Realignments of the Intellectually Precise and Emotionally Stable. And of course, I think the most important thing that human beings have to think about on a rock in the middle of nowhere is how they advance together, which means modern society's advancement. This idea of intellectual precision and emotional stability, I have talked about it before. It's this big distinction I make between behaviors of human beings. And some human beings, they want the result of the image they see, that is life, to change. And some people, it's not the result of the image. It's not like per se like what is visible. It is more of an it's like emotional stability. How do I tell you this? Intellectual precision prioritizes truth, okay, but truth's shape. Emotional stability is truth's feeling. So for example, someone can be intellectually precise. Let's say an old person, a senior citizen, comes and asks you a question, let us say. When an old person asks you a question and they could be wrong, or the way they're asking the question is wrong, a person could have intellectual precision and be like, no, you're wrong, it's like exactly this and that. And it's as if the intellect and what the factual sequence of the moment going forth is way more superior to the intellectually precise than the stability of the emotion. That means if that old person asked a question and the person was just like, hitting them back with their intellectual errors, it becomes something where it's as if some moments it is not worth linear intellect. Like oh man, hold on guys, let me change the music. There we go. Okay, I think I should paint more of the context. Let's say we're human beings. Let's say we are human beings. We're on a rock in the middle of nowhere. We have evolved through a very long time. An object through evolution became a subject to itself. And evolution has this sense of a gradual development. And so through technology has revolutionized our evolution. Right? And as our technology has increased, more information has been accessible. And so what that means is as technologies accelerate and arise as time goes forward, there is more information to judge things, right? That means it's as if before somebody could judge another person, they had to learn the words first. The words had to exist, the alphabet had to exist, And it's all behavior, really. It's human behavior. When you're young, I feel you're chasing what is outside more. But the moment you realize the outer realms are temporary, then you begin chasing what is inside more. So that means the person is you can say at first focused on their body's life, but midway through life, they're like, yo, I'm a mind, what is this? And so the mind's life activates. This thing between intellectual precision and emotional stability, how do I tell you? I was in an altered state of consciousness. I went to visit a friend. And in that altered state of consciousness, there was an emotional upheaval, a resurfacing. And through that emotional resurfacing, I can tell you that was a moment for me of exploring the psychedelic mind. And from emotional stability, there came the presence of truth. Okay? Now let me tell you what I mean by that. Our intellect is limited to our personality. Based on how much of an individual person you are, you have individual relationship with everything in the environment. That means in order for me to be a person, I gotta first separate myself from the world, you know? So that's what we have done, the species has done. And that separation has been so intense where it appears that at first we were unconscious. It seems consciousness is the luxury of empty space. So the human being, the more individual it is, the more separate from the world it sees itself, the more it can use its intellect to process things separately. But the more a person goes through emotion and emotional experience, and emotional experience is the witnessing of multiple levels. That means there's a view that we divided something, then conquered it into our understanding. And there's moments where things are not divided. I feel emotions are like looking at thoughts from like a higher elevated platform, like a bird in the forest, through one emotion being able to see so many ideological landscapes. That means it's as if right now we are object wielders. We're wielding objects as an unknown intelligence in the realm. Then we will be subject wielders, which we are now to some degree. You know, and beyond subject wielders will be emotional wielders. And all of reality can stabilize through emotion. Emotions appear, for example, just to use a dimensional metaphor, for example, we have 2D, 3D, 4D. We can say the emotion is 4D, the subject is 3D, the object is 2D. What we look at an object and cannot understand, we understand it through subjects. What we look at a subject and can't understand, we look at it through the emotion, right? And for example, not everybody can speak. These are like languages. Right? Not everybody has comfort with objective movement. You know, not everybody can do a backflip suddenly. You know, not everybody, for example, could suddenly, I don't know, write an essay or something. You know, so so it would be, and not everybody comprehends emotions. I would tell you personally, of course we are emotional creatures. It's not like we can be devoid of emotions, right? Emotions are, if you notice, most people have emotions. It's either happy or good. If the ideological outcome of their outer realms is not where, like, you can have an emotion of being stuck or numbness, right? There's something you can call depression, and then I would say there's something where it's like numb, like it's not depression, like I don't know what it is. It's like a limbo state. I've experienced it a few times before I had noticed that the inner realms and outer realms can be discriminated between. That means when I was a character in a story, do you know how many bad stories I was telling myself? Literally the mind, the moment you become a character, just can put you in any story, really. Pretty much, I was under the impression intellectual precision is the most important thing our species needs to do to look at the world as it is and then come up with systems to engage it. But now I will tell you, more than intellectual precision, it's emotional stability. That means because language is on thin ice, there is no ultimatum, there is no ultimate certainty. A person can be like, yeah, today the world looks like this, but thousands of years from now, you know, our voice may not be as valid, right? I feel, even though I'm saying emotional stability, we find in our on this planet human beings of different kinds, right? Human beings who, for example, those people who, for example, have OCD. Like I had an aunt who you dropped, literally, if you dropped, like if you were drinking a glass of water, and if a water dropped from the glass onto the ground, she had to instantly like clean it, you know. and everything you would speak to her, it would be as if she would filter through an intellectual precision, then have emotions come in, right? So there are some people who they are calculating, then being like, what is this? How do I feel about my calculation, right? And there's some people who straight, it's just emotion, right? It doesn't matter for them if there's danger or not. The emotion on a momentary level is their guidepost, is their guidance. Both of them have downsides. Intellectual precision makes you feel mechanical. That means it is, I agree, I know that, for example, there's been many people, especially some continental philosophers, who have, in some sense, thought about reason. For example, Immanuel Kant was one of those people. He wrote a book on reason. And I can tell you that reasoning, the moment it goes into fields of abstraction, is more considered as an emotion. That means it's as if when a person doesn't understand something, it's not that they don't understand it, it's that they have a feeling that is incomplete. I feel it's like this is the nature of the mind, the nature of the brain, I would say. It's designed to interpret. Our brains are interpreting the world we see to ourselves and then to our world. So it's as if I am looking at the world, it's entering my eyes, it's turning into it's being processed as some sort of meaning in the brain, and then from the inner, so it's like outer, it's from outer to the inner, and then from the inner to the outer, right? Or it can be from the inner to the outer, then to the inner. I think that's emotional stability. Emotional stability means you could be in a room and you could be right, you could be intellectually precise, but it doesn't mean it is necessary to behave. You see, like some moments, it's like human beings are just implementing whatever they can, the best of their ability to get by. If this is not understood, intellectual precision can become tyranny. If this is not even understood on an emotionally stable level, like from an emotional point, that means if we don't consider human beings are performing emotionally in front of themselves, right? And they're performing this is a great analogy. Imagine 3 types of performances. That means right now as I'm existing in this moment, it's as if my body is performing, but my body's performing like sitting on the ground, and when I speak, like my hands go in there. So the body is active in its performance. Now when I come and sit down, like I've sat down now, there's a piece of paper in front of me. So the body's performance has become second nature. Now it has gone to the mind's performance. And when the mind's performance also becomes second nature, that reaches a point where, just like how a person no longer has to think about holding a pen in their hand when they've written for many years, right? So after some years of living as a human being, to be a human being becomes second nature. And for those who are sensitive and those who are not exiling their inner child, I noticed something very strange, that the fragmentation in the psyche of the human being happens because of culture. It's so hilarious. The child is born as like a blank slate, tabula rasa, then it is indoctrinated in society. From society it establishes character, then that character wonders why is society so messed up. It's as if we are identifying with a sinking ship even though we're not on it, and then we're like, oh man, why does everything feel like it's sinking? Intellectual precision is just vision. All of knowledge is to me vision. When I was younger, this whole thing about intelligence, measurement, IQ, that was a show. It doesn't matter how smart you are on a sinking ship. If the ship is sinking, everybody's stupid, right? It doesn't matter how smart you are temporarily to something. The world requires advancement, it requires strategy, and it requires endless backup systems. That means the way I've kind of thought, like, how are we going to get through this as just 8 billion creatures on a rock, right? This is really a big deal, right? We have normalized things to a point where we're becoming ignorant of the universal position of our species. It's terrifying, and at the same time, it's wondrous, right? So you need a combination. I think this is awe. The word awe is like a mixture of like overwhelmment and fear plus wonder. I think fear plus, I don't know if it's awe. I think deep down I feel it's the word awe, where it's a sort of reverence through of intensity, right? Like as if something the person did not have a familiar pattern of reference to even notice, right? Things we get surprised about are pretty much patterns we haven't been familiarized with, because in this world everything's moving, right? And pretty much knowledge is interpretation of this movement, the interpretation of matter changing in space, right? So stuff was changing in emptiness, and we started pinpointing it. We created time. We named this space. We named space. We named what was in space. Then we named what was in space that changed as time. This allowed us to stabilize a subjective story. That means every human being is actually containing the world that is containing them. Intellectual precision may satisfy the inner realm, but it is not what the species needs. There should be a greater than sign between emotional stability, and let me tell you why. Because we cannot comprehend. That's it. Because so many things don't make sense. If we go intellectually precise again, the tyranny, it's going to be ideological Hunger Games. We see evidence of this in regards to every institution in society having its own, I don't want to say agenda, but it's as if aiming towards the end of its own age. That means things begin in a certain way, as if like it's not just human beings performing on stage, it is ideological systems performing in the minds of human beings. And these ideological systems are very heavy. They define, they take, they shape. It's as if we are, it's as if we are clay, but on multiple levels, right? It's as if you're getting shaped by your own memories and how your memories take form in regards to how you decide to enter the experience. If a person does something that hurts them, they're creating a memory of their future self that they have been hurt. This is really the fascination of the human mind. It is containing something. Then after it is containing something, it is doing something with that container. So think of this, that the human intelligence made the alphabet. Then, after establishing the alphabet, connected the letters and made words. After making words, we went to making sentences. After sentences, into paragraphs. And as pages were filled and books were written, man's mind just went forth. It's as if, you know what it is? We are like an unknown stranded intelligence that has no clue what it is and can't even fathom if it can know what it is. That means if we are, it could totally be the case that reality was never physical, right? I'm honestly, for me, I'm so happy philosophers exist. They are the rebels of the inner realms. Philosophers were those who cared for not just how the body was in the world, but how the world was in the body. And they are, I am telling you, the philosophical inspiration, it's exploration. That means you can say anybody who has explored something new, you have become a philosopher of your universal realm, of how you are taking in reality. Right? And it is not easy, because let me tell you why emotional stability is a lot. It is more important because intellectual precision is temporary. Because the intellect is constantly limited to updates. That means a person can feel they are correct, right? But then they're going to see that everything is going to update. So being correct no longer becomes as important again as how the emotions of human beings are bringing out the greatest potential of humanity. That means for me, it's not about, like, I feel a civilization that is making knowledge a big deal it's an error. It shouldn't be knowledge we should all be looking for. It's as if the question should come, let's say you had all the knowledge, what would you do next? The next thing after knowledge is inspiration. What that means is after you have seen things that have already been, you then go towards things that have never been. As if a person first wonders, what do I know? Right? They're fascinated by wanting to know more, and then suddenly they're like, wait a minute, my whole life I have been looking to know. But what, like, how could it be that what I don't know is the fascination? That means it's not who I am. I could be anyone. It's the unknown self waiting that pulls us to the future. Albert Camus, this French philosopher, he says, in the depths of winter, I found within me an invincible summer. That invincible summer is the clarity of a species that realizes comparison is the game of hungry animals. Like, I understand capitalism, the capitalistic system provides an incredible opportunity through its competition for various kinds of products and inventions and technological innovation to occur. But at the same time, it's as if, do you want the technology to enter in a world of hungry, barking, dogmatic, like I don't know how to say it, but it's like, it's not just what you create in this life that's important, it's how you create it. Just like a tour guide, for example, and that tour guide, there are tourists. And the tour guide realizes it's not about what really the tour place is, it's about the experience, right? We gotta, like, one of my favorite comedians is Sebastian Maniscalco, and he was on Joe Rogan podcast, and he said something that was so hilarious. It was like, he was a person whose hobby was hospitality, and his hobby was hospitality. That means okay, I shouldn't make it, of course, personal to him, but I would say it's as if it's an incredible feeling not to just like whack-a-mole in a right or wrong way, right? It's progress. You see, it's as if small battles you go through, then after a while you look back and you're like, is this what Victor is? That means you have been going on the solo battle for such a long time, where after some point it can't hurt you. Anything. And I'm not talking about physical stuff. Of course, physicality is a different game. The outer realms, it doesn't matter how spiritual you are. If you don't drink water, you'll you'll faint out of like dryness. That means even the most spiritual people, drank from fountains. So you see, it's not about arrogance. Arrogance is ignorance. That means nobody can be arrogant if they're not ignorant. That means somebody who sees something, they can't then not see it, right? They can choose to not behave in accordance to it, but to not see is impossible. That means it's like a child that at a young age sees something they shouldn't, like sees adult content or something, right? That child's mind can't unsee it, do you know? But it tries to push it away, do you know? But indirectly, that pushing away connects it to it. connects the person to it. Our identities are choices. Our choices are arising from moments of vision where we are nothing before we choose. Right? I am nothing before I wake up. You know, the person's like, you're nothing, and you're like, okay, maybe in deep sleep, but in reality, you're like, you know, you're like, give me a break. In deep sleep, we're all nothing. And really, I'm telling you, when you see your life as an elemental performance, as if the periodic table, it's like, who can judge the periodic table? You know, I'm the periodic table talking to you right now. You know, so from an elemental level of activity, it's as if it's an elemental program. This elemental program has activated another program within itself, which is the mind's program. It's not just objecthood, it's subjecthood. And I got the clue that we look at objects in the scientific vision and through the scientific lens as particles, right? Even though we're considering the atom 99.9% empty, like science has a lot of things it has to answer for. You know, a lot of things it's claiming from one experimentation, yet if you look at it from different angles, if we really wanted to be multidimensional scientists, we would never be satisfied with one experiment. We would have to infinitely run experiments and only then feel like we're getting close, right? Because it's as if the thing about reality is that it can be seen from multiple angles, especially the mind's life, right? My mind gave me an ability. My real name is Amin. But my mind, like in 2014, was like, yo, Mr.Within. You know, so my mind saw a different narrative or a possibility of a different narrative. So it's like an objective program has led to a subjective program, and a subjective program has led to an emotional program, and the emotional program has led to the unknown witness. We are like, if we started, you know how Drake says in one of his talks, we started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from individual objecthood, now we are an unknown witness, right? And this unknown witness is nothing to fear. It's just the error is that this is why the word initiation existed, because it has to be introduced. That means a person's like looking, imagine, at a dandelion, and the person's like, oh my God, what is that? As if the first person who ever saw a dandelion, right? And imagine the first person who found like sunflower seeds, right? So I'm saying, imagine the first person who saw a sunflower, and the person's like, I can't tell, is this food? Can you imagine like how weird it would have been, you know? Like the first person who found out sunflower seeds existed, you know, his buddy's like, you know, are you eating a flower, man? It's like, it's so good, bro. Do you know how many human beings have ate flowers not knowing that they weren't food? They were just aesthetic, natural preservation, you know? Because if the meaning of life was energy, we should have become just creatures that eat everything. We should have become the ultimate devourers if we wanted to stay true to the animal, right? Because we have moved beyond the animal instinct, we don't devour anymore. We watch them at least act. So if the person doesn't know, for example, what the name of what they're looking at is, they can't ideologically engage it. That means people should get the biggest clue of what knowledge is from the moment the child is named. Names are being treated as knowledge. And what we call a fact is language that correlates, that is in sync with how the outer realms happens. But if we look at the idea, our emotions are not factual. That means a person can look, you know, at a piece of paper and you can rationalize, and you'll be like, why is the person getting emotional reading a letter? It's just ink and a piece of paper. How could the person get emotional from reading the letter, right? It's that the ink and the paper in regards to the living being who is reading it animate. So the outer realm is endlessly being translated into the inner realm as identity, and the inner realm has an ability to re-express itself in the outer realms, right? So I would say in intellectual precision and emotional stability, these are beings who are aware of their outer realm and inner realm, but in different sequences. Those who look for intellectual precision, their starting point is individual. So I remember saying it in yesterday's talk. I see I. So a person, if their causal position is individual, they will go collective and they will come back to individual. It is only when a being realizes that from the beginning they were collective that you surpass individualism into another collectivity. So right now, for those people who are prioritizing the intellectual precision, it's ICI, individual, collective, individual. For those people who are going towards emotional stability, they're not prioritizing the individual first, because if the individual is first, then facts come and can tear the moment into linear pieces, you know? That means the thing is, not everything correlates to our outer realms, and we as a species have been avoiding the nature of our eyes in a temporary landscape. That means what greater, it's like offending the soul of creation, you know, that it's as if we are here for a little while, yet our attention goes on our inefficiency. It's as if, who cares about failure? Who cares about inefficiency? On some level, remaining. Right? It's as if at some point I feel one of the only ways a person can completely defeat the battle of their psychology against their weak self is that you have to go and see your weakest self. And only when you have accepted the weakest moment of your being and you can watch in an unknown way your weakness. Seldom do they say, but the alchemist knew, lead turns into gold. Strength is truth. You think this universe, 4.5 billion years, just so a creature emerges to be sad? It's like there's greater plans. But these plans are very complex in how we balance it between our inner realm and our outer realm. Right? So, René Descartes spoke about mind-body dualism. For this modern time, I have stable, it's not just like this concept, I call it the inner realms. Let me tell you why I'm using that term. I remember seeing, it was in Game of Thrones, and I like a lot of action movies and a lot of war movies, but not military per se, not military war films. I would say films of like medieval times, or when they still fought with swords, shields, spears, and bows, right? And there is something about collective emergence being the surpassing of all individual limits. It's as if in this life, I feel a person should just implement this technique before I truly dive into the nature of the inner realms and outer realms. This is the technique. If you're suffering, make decisions quickly. If you are in joy, if you're in a state of joy, make decisions quickly, but not in your outer realms. What I mean by that is, let's say a person's like suffering, quickly input into the moment. That means it's very easy that if the mind's life is in turbulence, the body's life, just move the body and the mind stabilizes, you know? Or it depends, if your mind is turbulent because you move, just bring your body to stillness, which is pretty much meditation. Like people self-glorified meditation, in a sense, not realizing that it's not to sit down and not have thoughts. That's the most foolish thing, right? It's to realize you're not a thought. It's not that you should try to meditate so you don't have thoughts. It's to realize you could have never had a thought. The thought you don't own. Like, even though I'm speaking right now, no living being in a changing universe can own anything. You know, I'm serious. It's only through our cultural program that we have these laws, because if we treated ourselves as nature is living for itself, but its universal self. It's as if the animals of this world know the other dimensions so precisely because they don't have egos. I'm telling you, animals have their decency is on point. That means they can't go counter decency. Right? And in Vedic thought, there was this very profound, and this is going to be very cool for pet owners. Anybody who has a pet right now, I'm going to tell you something in Vedic thought. In Vedic thought, they saw there was a yogi, I forget his name, but this is a story found in the Puranas, written by Rishi Vyasa. In the Puranas, there is a yogi, and this yogi is meditating, and I don't know if the sequence of the story was this order or the other way, but I'll tell you what I remember from the story. Pretty much there's this yogi sitting in samadhi. This yogi's whole aim is to sit down and meditate. There's two stories here. One story is this yogi is meditating, and he's in samadhi, and a king, that a bunch of people are like moving this king on a board, right? So the king, instead of having a chariot being moved by horses, a bunch of human beings are like holding like this board, and the king's like sitting on it, right? And this yogi's meditating, and the king is going with all these people carrying him, and the king looks at this yogi meditating, and he's like, "Hey, random person meditating in the forest, get up and help all these people carry me. I'm the king of the land." Right? And this yogi is so selfless that he steps out of his samadhi, and he starts coming and joining, as if like the moment is calling him. Even though right or wrong aside from all the dimensions, one can see the moment. It's as if for that guy, it was like, for the yogi, it was like the next moment. So what happens is this yogi goes and helps all these people who are carrying this, pretty much this king on a table, right? They're being the legs of the table, the moving legs of the table. So now the king suddenly sees the table is going off balance, right? And then the king's like, "What's going on?" And suddenly they put down the table, and they Okay, we're back. So there was an issue with the streaming software, guys. I'm gonna continue. Let's move past this part quickly then. Pretty much this yogi, the king's like, "What are you doing, yogi? Why are you moving not in tune with all those people carrying me on this table?" And then the yogi's like, "I don't want to kill the insects." And then the king is shocked. He's like, "Why don't you want to kill the insects?" And the yogi goes on sharing this liberated truth, literally going to insta satsang mode for this guy, and he tells the king something about, I don't remember the exact wording, but he says about this same life in the insects is the same life in me and you. And the king gets goosebumps, and suddenly his relationship with the guy changes, right? Now that's one story in the Puranas, but the main story I wanted to say, and I said pet owners, was this story of this same yogi. He's meditating, and this yogi suddenly sees that a pregnant gazelle, like a pregnant deer, is running, right? From this tiger, and the gazelle, pregnant deer, comes into the river. So the tiger is chasing the gazelle crosses the river, the tiger doesn't chase the gazelle anymore, but the mother gives birth to the child of the gazelle in the river. So a pregnant deer running away from this tiger gives birth in the river, and this yogi's on the other side of the river, and he grabs this baby deer. He saves this baby deer's life. It's as if the whole moment came to a significance, right? And so this yogi saves this deer's life, right? This baby deer, and starts raising this baby deer. And he's a yogi where he has this mindset of trying to renounce material desires and be in the state of samadhi until death comes. So he wants to be in a samadhi state before death comes. And what happens is the story goes to a point where this yogi is about to die, but he doesn't know, and he's in a samadhi state. Suddenly, last second, the gazelle runs away. The moment the yogi is about to die, the deer that has grown runs away, and this guy's mind goes to where is the deer, and he dies. The moment he dies and his thought is on where is the deer, he ends up being a deer his next lifetime. But it's very unique in how the story is painted in the Puranas. He ends up being a deer that has all his memories, all of his memories from all his lifetimes. That means even though he appears as just a deer in the body, he incarnates as in the body of a deer, but he has the memory. He's literally experiencing it as like all his memories. He knows exactly what happened to him and everything, even though he's incarnated as a deer. And the story goes on that he reincarnates and goes back, suddenly climbs back up where he fell as a multidimensional being in the narrative, as a universal being. Right? The whole thing, even the word of yoga and all the paths to yoga, right? These are all just ways of recognizing the inseparability of the individual activity with the cosmic activity. So, now I'll tell you an experience I had. I've never had a pet. Like, I've had turtles and fish. You know, like when I was very young, but I haven't had pets. So but I will tell you, when I went to Rishikesh, India, I was staying in this ashram, and the kitchen staff always had this dog that would follow. It was weird. It was as if there was this dog in the ashram that was gentle, and this dog would just follow the kitchen staff, right? And I remember when I was in Rishikesh, I found myself in a moment where the ashram had these front gates to Niketan Ashram, it was called. Sorry guys, I was typing something. Yeah, so this dog, that same dog where they would put food for the dog, in the Niketan Ashram, in the front gate of it, there was like this metal gate that would open up to the street, right? And on the other side of it, there was like this fenced area that led to another side of the street, but the whole ashram was on, like, believe it or not, strangely, like a mountain, right? Not like a mountain, but like this high hill. Right, so one side of it went to a street on the level of where the ashram was, and the other side of it you went down this ramp and went to this lower street by the water, right? So anyways, it was night. I remember the gates were open, and this dog was looking at the open gates of the ashram, and I was the only one standing. It was such a surreal experience, guys. I gotta tell you this. I was standing, so the gate of the ashram is open. These gates are open. The dog is staring at the open, and in India they have wild dogs and everything, right? They have even wild monkeys, and believe it or not, cows that you think they're wild, but they're extremely enlightened cows. Anyways, the dog is staring at the gate, open gate. It's at night. And I just grabbed it. I just say something. I don't know what I say. In Iran, like I remember someone doing, what's the term? I take the dog. I look at the dog and I try to shoo it away from the gate, right? And it was honestly a moment where I was like, this wasn't a dog. For a moment, it was like something else was looking more deeply. It wasn't something else was looking. It was like the eyes of the dog was something else. That's how I should say it. It wasn't like there was something in the dog moving the dog. It was like the eyes of the dog, just like our own biological eyes. They are just elemental positioning, right? And how much of our sight, like I always think about this, like when you become, this is true metaphysics. This is what I feel spirituality was meant to be, right? Where the person realized if the idea of the spirit is surpassing any sort of material realm, and if the story of the person's life and the reasoning of their spirituality is from the story of their life, it's as if how can something beyond matter have an image? Right? So true my personal school of thought in regards to the soul is that it doesn't have a personality. When I say the unknown is unknown, that means the unknown is the unknown. It's as if an unknown cause, we are the known effect. Or we can feel like we're the unknown cause and the world is the known effect, right? Based on the inner outer realmism. The most important talk that I haven't given yet, but people should hear, where it's going to be the official, me explaining full out the inner realms and outer realms, is going to be Mr. Within's. What did I call it? Mr. Within's inner and dash outer realm-ism. Similar to Rene Descartes' mind-body dualism, I'm retranslating that in the sense where the honor of the ancient vibe, in some sense, to be an individual, but to move in a collective will give the individual a glimpse of its collectivity. Therefore, the individual, whether with the collective or not, has the access to the collectivity. But anyways, I'm moving on a different crossroad here. What I'm trying to communicate is that we know only 25% of the reality, and this 25% is anything that is dualistic. Anybody can notice it. That means, let's say you're a person who you're tired, and then suddenly someone gives you a complex problem, right? Let's say you're super tired, and suddenly, like a stack of papers and falls on your table, and these are problems you got to solve, right? So one strategy is if the person's like, I'm too tired to think, but I'm not too tired to use a technique. And so the person can look at every problem and just wonder what would the opposite of the problem look like, and wonder how close that is to a potential answer. Anytime you can see something's opposite, you are witnessing duality. It's a cool thing. It's like the person's like, I'm a bad person. Then they're like, how do I know I'm bad though? Oh yeah, I need to know first how I can be a good person. And then it's like off that, there's a codependency. You can't say to someone, I love you, and without them being like, wait a minute, this person just said I love you to me, but you can't love without hate. That means there has to be something there, right? It's as if, can you imagine somebody saying I hate you and the person's being like, oh my god, this person loves me, and someone saying I love you and you're like, oh my god, this person hates me. This is why I'm saying even chaos can have beauty, but it's just discretion, right? Ultimately, it's energetic expression, and we can control it, and before we couldn't, right? And so the realignment of the position of the human being in society means how much is language going to be your life, and how much is indirect language going to occupy the attention of your life, and how much direct experience. Emotional stability will create atmospheres of great integration. That means I was thinking, okay, let's just sharpen the intellect of the species. Then I'm like, wait a minute, it's not like that intellect can be, it's like we don't need more robots, you know? So emotion, I will say those people who are sensitive of their emotions, have an emotional wisdom. It's like I will tell you, an emotional person is a way more advanced being is a way more advanced creature. Regardless of the emotion, good, bad, but just if you are emotional, it's like you're being a way more advanced creature than just linear response to stimulus. Because I will tell you, this is something that the scientific mind, I shouldn't connect, of course, us, the scientists, to the scientific method. You know, that would be kind of against the method. But I would say, it's as if whatever scientific finding we have, or we find, this scientific finding is limited to a society where emotions cause the person not to just entertain linear views. That means it's hilarious. It's like, it's true. Science is a very empirical method, but the world we're living in is not empirical. You know, emotions are not just coming from what's in front of our eyes. And if we don't realize this, we are blind to our own intelligence. Especially for men, I would say, less for women. For men, I would say it's like emotional stability is different, because the urge for expression, let's say, it's intense. And of course, on some level, we can all say we're just chemicals leading to the mirage of humanoid. Like we can take it there if we want to get too judgmental about it, right? That means it's like the person's being judged, and the person's like, how are you judging atoms, man? These atoms are innocent. You know, it becomes something where where it's as if like atoms can't be judged by personality. I think that's what it means when somebody says, you know, that person didn't have a personality. It's like that person was just being atoms. You know, this is why I'm saying style, the word style is divine. It's like how atoms are organizing themselves. Sometimes for me, it's like there's one level where if the person doesn't judge, they first try to see what's going on, then judge. I'm telling you, you access more information. This is why they said patience is a virtue. Because the person who's more patient sees more. The person who's very, let's say, I don't know, reacting to stimulus like an animal. I mean, like, I feel if we as a species declare the ultimate art form is to be human, for the first time being human, imagine it is not a belief, it is not a fact, it is not a story, it is an art form. It is artistry at its finest. It's nature's art, how we are being human, right? And I feel there was this show, which this show was like, I thank the nation of Japan in my heart, like when I saw this show. And this show was called Black Clover, you know? It was this Japanese comic book turned into a show, and it was this universe where everybody had magic in it. Some magical ability, right? And magic, of course, it has connotations based on how it's implemented. Ultimately, it's like everything is energy, and how we use it suggests the consequences, right? You can say both the good and bad person are just energetic creatures. It's just their decision making and their how they've extrapolated like a map of reality for themselves from the outer realm. So anyways, in this show, everybody had a magical ability, and there were characters who they were just dependent on their own magic, their own ability. They were just soloing it out. And then there were people who they realized if they go solo, they will go into moments where their ability can't handle all moments, right? So they would go into groups, and it would be as if one of them, for example, had I don't know, water magic. Or I'll tell you, one of them, like there was this one scene where, I don't know, this chaotic, like, I don't know, oh God, I may be confusing the audience here. In a universe where everybody has magic, the magic alone wasn't enough. When combined, it was powerful, to a point where there were like two people. One of them had this magic called dark magic, so he created a dark sphere around himself, so he couldn't technically die because light wasn't hitting it. You know, it was as if he was in a capsule, right? And at the same time, there was this other character who had this plant ability, so inside this capsule, right, that light couldn't enter, right, the other character who had an ability to just animate plants, so the plants would create the oxygen. So it was as if they were using their abilities, right, to get into an advanced moment, right? Like the advanced communicators just know this by nature, I feel. So in this show, there was this ability, everybody had a magical ability, and the coolest thing about the show was the person's magic was based on their character. Like there was this one person who loved plants and cared about nature, and his magic was tree magic. Literally his character defined his ability, right? Or how the being's nature was living, right? And it's such a sophisticated show where I'm like, of course, I don't know, one day I may just dedicate like 10 episodes on just 10 talks on just trying to explain how fascinatingly deep this show is, right? If you forget the pixels on the screen and you just see the narrative, the story, like so many things, it doesn't matter if it's real actor or if it's animation, it's like, what is the story here? And that's where I would tell you the fascination is. So anyways, in this theme, they all had different abilities. Then I thought, oh man, what about human society? You know, as if like, where is the magic in our world? Is it just cyberspace? Is it just technology? Is it just like, you know, behavior and our languages? And the closest thing to magic, like if I was to look at human civilization and somebody was like, see the parallels between these two right now, like if I was to see the universe of Black Clover and this universe we are in currently, I would say if we all created, for example, a cyberspace realm, and we went into that cyberspace realm and we were born into cyberspace, it would be as if we all chose to go into cyberspace room, we could literally re-implement these. I feel all these shows and films and stories that we see now on just the screen, with future technology, we will be able to relive. Not just relive human history, to relive fictional human history, the fictions that have arose and being like invisible counterparts to the visible history, while at the time of the visible history arising. So I thought about in regards to what is the magic of the realm, and it comes down to our DNA. It starts there. First of all, everybody has a different DNA. Okay? Now, after the DNA, you end up as a biological creature, then you have journeyed. Like right now, everybody listening to me, you are all journeyers up to this moment. You have all experientially tunneled through the space-time continuum. To hear me talk, to come here and hear me talk about anime. You know, this is a very important moment. where animate creatures are studying how they're animate in an inanimate context. Our DNA is different. Aside from our DNA, we each occupy a moment in the space-time continuum. There was this scholar named Manly P. Hall. He said this. He said this in. I remember in one of his lectures I heard. He said something very interesting. He said behind every moment of matter, there is a spiritual unit. He didn't say it exactly like that, but he said the term spiritual unit behind every matter, right? That means that behind every atom, there's an invisible witness, you know, just chilling. A spiritual unit, he called it. Or a spark of life, I would say, is another poetic way of saying it. But check this out. The DNA makes us unique, first of all. Then our name makes us unique. Then our conditioning in life makes us unique. All of these are like showing you the magic of your knowledge so far. So unique. The DNA is different. The names are different. The walks in life, the conditioning is different, right? So that means everybody has access to different ways life has formed to them so far. How you use your journey is your magic. But it is not, I don't want to use the term magic because unfortunately egos, I don't know, they entered language's temples with muddy shoes. So magic is actually language's emergence first to the species, and human beings couldn't tell apart. So when somebody said something, people would take it so seriously that they couldn't see anything else, and their whole karma would move that way. So they would call that magic, right? It meant like some beings, it's, you know what it is? This is what the word magic doesn't really mean anything. It's like this. It's like a two-dimensional being, but there's also a imagine there's a fourth dimensional being, a three-dimensional being, and a two-dimensional being, okay? It's like a two-dimensional being, and a fourth-dimensional being is using a three-dimensional technology to make a two-dimensional being feel confused to the three dimensions, even though that two-dimensional being can instantly remember it's fourth-dimensional. So what I'm trying to say is magic is like putting a box on consciousness. That's it. If you realize that consciousness cannot be boxed, if you realize the unconditional presence of the freedom of attention and energy being instantaneous, as the term Satchit Ananda says, conscious existence is bliss. Once you experience a glimpse of that bliss, and once you notice your body, like, let me tell you how profound of a moment a person can have on this planet, where you can see your body, your biological body, having tears of joy for how your mind has realized it was never the body. It's like there's a poetry to the world that only, I feel, the sincere can access. And when I say sincere on a sound level, it is also the seer's sin. You see, for me, I was like, okay, like imagine being born in a religious environment. So you're like, why are human beings here? Because God created them. Why did God create human beings? Don't ask questions. Nobody knows the mind of them. Do you know? So, oh man. But ultimately, it's just the unknown. Everybody is hiding the unknown. That's the gift in a world where knowledge suffers, you know, to its own limitation. I feel human beings, if they learn from samurai and honor and rekindle a modern neo-bushido, a modern multidimensional neo-bushido of our era. If we can care for what we are, we can use it. If we don't care for it, we are never in the room to even see its karma, right? That means those people the heart doesn't care for, it's like whatever you do, like let me tell you what I mean by that. That means like, it's as if like, somebody once said it, those who can't be with you when you are in your low, they can't be with you when you're in your high, right? So it's as if friends who, it's as if, I don't know, okay, let me take it here. For now, the magic the human being has access to, aside from the DNA, the name, and the way it walks in the outer realms, it is also the voice. And I would say right now, the whole species is, we are airbenders. And this air turns into sound and people know what we want. You know, so we are bending air as a creature to generate a sound, and that sound is harboring within itself a symbolism that if the other receiver can notice the same symbol, the meaning activates. It's as if everything has, it's like, you know what it is? It's like you're reading a book and you're like, what language is this? Right? But then suddenly, for example, you know that language and everything that was meaningless suddenly becomes meaningful. This is the beauty of how in Tibetan Buddhism they cared for this, they called it inner treasure revealing. That means there isn't just treasure outside to find, there's also treasures inside. You can say many spiritual seekers, they're looking for the ultimate treasure. And the ultimate treasure is not to have power, it's to surpass suffering by understanding this universally intelligent event. It's very hard for me to say, but our voices and everything that is here to itself is not here. We are like a shadow dimension. We are a shadow dimension. That's a good explanation. Earth is a shadow dimension. It's the shadow of a superior dimension. I think this is an interesting way to look at it. That means the shadow is the illusion the moment the person turns around to the sun. But when their back is to the sun, you are seeing shadows till the end of time. When your back is towards the true nature of the realm, you will just, dwell in language, like a bewildered beast. You know, so this is where emotional stability is also an advanced, I would say, state of communication. You know, in studying communication, the healthiest way, the most incredible, I would say this was something I pat myself on the back, that I realized everything in the universe is communication. We call it body language, right? But we don't call the mind, we're trying to identify with the mind, but it should be mind language. So what it is we are never seeing what we are seeing what we are using, or what is actively being used, or what is active. And it's the maturity or advancement with a multidimensional maturity of the species that's going to allow it to begin having a conscious relationship with the interdimensional. That means this is where I don't know. I'm kind of waiting to see what the global, like where the civilization, like all human societies and their activities, where they're ultimately going, right? Are they going towards just, I don't know, enduring inefficiently, or are they caring for the once in a lifetime opportunity of not a human being, but of humanity? That means our species also has once in a lifetime opportunity. If everything is communication, then that totally shifts the idea of magic. That's how I would say back in the day they called it magic. They called it, I don't know, moving the elements. Now I would say it's like we're asking the magicians to politely go back into their top hats, and now now the advanced communicators are stepping on stage, where the sophistication of communication, you know what that would mean? That would mean all of knowledge is either there to be received or expressed. What else can you do with knowledge? You can stare at it too. That's a third option. You could stare at life just move past you. Or the person can use what they have in the moment, or what they are being in the moment. Something I gotta say, because this character in this picture I've chosen, this character is also from another Japanese narrative, and there's something very specific about his psychology. This character, his name is, what was his name? Midoriya, something like that. And he's this character where, unlike a magic universe, in this Japanese narrative, he's born in a universe where instead of magic, it's heroes. Right? So there is magical ability, but it's this modernized advantage where what was like Gandalf back in the day is like a superhero wearing a cape. You know, what was a wizard back in the day? Like Merlin is like, you know, Iron Man punching like an alien in the face. You know what I mean? It's you know, it's like I want to see a humanity that is not just advanced in the outer realms. We are consciously advanced in the inner realms, right? That means, imagine in the future, this is how sophisticated the advanced communicator is going to be. The child comes to the parent. There's like this article that says, this is a psychological observation where a lot of children see invisible friends and imaginary friends at a young age. Then they come and communicate to the parents, and the parents are like, "Oh, look at our child being a child. You know, it's like it's not real, sweetie. You know, it's like get out of here. You know, you know." And so the child's like, "Oh, okay, this thing I'm seeing, which to me is definitely real, but to you is not unreal. Okay, because you say it's unreal, I'm gonna act like it's not real. You know." And that's where the child stops having a relationship with its own imagination. But here it's where it's very crucial, where the child has to also, with a strict discipline, be humanized. Right? That means all parents should look at their children. It's like, son, you're gonna go. It's like, you know, daughter, son, you're gonna go into the world, right? And there's gonna be endless ideological systems that are gonna throw themselves at you, right? It's as if, remember, in whatever you do in this life, be human first, then do whatever you like, okay? You know, that means we should be able to stabilize, have an emotionally stable headquarters of the species in the human framework. And then the humanity becomes the first letter of the alphabet, and interdimensionally we begin wondering of all the types of ways that humanoid intelligence can be, not just in technological sense, right? For example, a demon with the hands like and the hooves of like a horse or something, like you saw in Narnia. You know? Like, for example, that's a humanoid. That's a dehumanized, but it's still echoing some human traits, right? Now, whether it's a robot that looks like a human, whether it's some weird entity and interdimensionally that looks like a human, whether it's an alien that looks like a human, whether it's a god that looks like a human, whether it's a universe that looks like a human, It's as if we are right now in the most incredible point. We are at the balcony, or we are at the peak of the mountain of the human idea. And it is really what happens in the next 30 years that will suggest how ready we will be to, as advanced communicators, and not moral authoritarians, but as caring collective beings, where it's as if people are like, it's as if when they see discrimination on the street, they don't become violent. The person's like, how dare you not see your own universe? That means it's like that person, what was that show, Castaway? With Tom Hanks in it, right? So in that film, the character comes back home at the end and he can't even sleep on his bed. But he is grateful that he is back where human beings are. And it's not for mysticism, it's not for everyone. Mysticism is something where you will know if you intuitively have the ticket or not. Because it's something where if anybody who is who can observe the unknown move the known comfortably, I would say you're a mystic. If you have some sort of relationship with the unknown that's non-ideological and experiential, then it's like you've noticed something as a creature here. Now, what you do with what you see, and then how you are, and how far you can go, you know. It's like that is the realm, because really, I mean, on some level, I can't lie, like really language is an exaggeration, because it's literally, it's like we got bored with objects and being quiet and we started communicating. So you can say it's like definitely an interdimensional relationship right now. As I'm speaking to you as an object, like a biological object here, well, there's a mind here. This mind is like the glow of a candle. So the whole of my awareness is not an object to me, but the object is in my awareness. So how can an object in my awareness make me an object when the object is like the small and the awareness is the big? You know, so that's when you begin noticing the mind's life, really. And I would say we even have the illusion of dreams, and the person's like, I woke up from a dream. Now, it's not that that's wrong. Every era in history has their own paradigm of looking at things and seeing how there's a meaning. It's honestly just realizing nobody on this planet has your eyes, and you can silently wait, or you can bow to the advancement of your civilization and its humanity. Because that was one of the hardest things I had to bypass. When I started talking about it in the advanced civilization, in my inner realms, the logos was like it's as if like getting it's like ding ding ding, like you know, it's like endless, like it was like the logos was like a red alert alarms. Do you know? Imagine alarms in a submarine, for example, right? Like you see in movies, right? It was the logos was, I became alarmed. Why? Because I realized my biggest challenge as someone trying to introduce the advanced civilization is to keep it human. Because if it is non-human, then there is no common language of the species. It's like the Tower of Babylon story, where all human beings were united under one universal language, as if that's world magic. Do you know? One of the highest forms of, let's say, or that's world communication, one of the highest forms of communication. You know? For me, I've had glimpses of that, but forgive me, folks, I'm trying to paint too many pictures at once, and Just a second. From a dream. Now, it's not that just a second. Say it's like definitely an interdimensional relationship right now. Talking about the advanced civilization, in my inner realms, the logos was like it's as if like getting it's like ding ding ding, like you know, it's like endless, like an alarm of just how would I say it? It's like my whole intent is to see how far communication can go, and it always gives feedback. Like that's the thing, where just like like the bat. I don't know why I'm bringing bats into this, but imagine like bats in a cave, right? They don't see, they can't see, but they use what's it called, sonar? They use sound, right? So sound waves come back. So if an opera singer sings, I don't know, in a cave, potentially all the flying bats are gonna hit the walls or whatever, you know. So it's like a reliance on a sense different than the visual, being able to animate equal to the visual. I'm telling you, the mind is a realm. A person can literally close their eyes and scroll through their memories. A person can close their eyes, visualize something, then open their eyes and see that visualization in the outer realms. You know, for people, if your eyes are closed, visualization is instant. Everybody's good at visualizing when their eyes are closed. Everyone is like a master mover of attention when their eyes are closed in the inner realms. But when their eyes are open, how they overlay their inner realms on the outer realms suggests their life and their response to their reaction to their life. Let's say, let me start from here, that there's the body's life, which is 100%, let's say, testable, knowable. We have the mind's life, which is semi-testable, right? It's like, I would say it's 50% known, 50% unknown, the mind. And then we go to the soul's life. This is the traditional model I'm using, body, mind, soul. See it as like 3 concentric spheres or 3 onion layers, right? So then the soul's life is 100% unknown. Now, if the soul's life is 100% unknown, to truly experience it means you cannot be a creature of the known realm. So if you want to retain your biological body and become 100% unknown, There's the strategy of in your inner realms trying to build some momentum up to it, or the strategy of an instantaneous recognition that if the unknown caused this, how can we fear ourselves? That means the person begins know the inseparability between the okay, so it's like if you wanna as a body, like the body can't comprehend the soul because the soul is not an object and the body can only touch an object. So all those people who want to see it to believe it, touch it to believe it, it's like it's as if it's like you're playing with matter. 100% matter in the spotlight of your attention. But when it comes to the mind's content, let's say somebody says, how are you doing? And the person gives an answer, that's coming from the person checking the known variables to the day, and then at the same time noticing the unknown variables in the day. And the unknown variables to the day, deep down the person's, I think everybody knows the unknown deep down. Everybody knows that any moment of control, if that control is not maintained, it descends into simpler levels of chaos. Not complex levels of chaos, but simpler chaos. To continue, the body must be treated like one's youngest sibling. The mind should be treated as one's second youngest sibling. And the soul is the oldest sibling, here to take care of the mind and the body, right? In case if they can't take care of themselves. That means the soul is like doing its own thing, and it's like telling the body and the mind poetically, I'm animating here. Imagine the soul's like, all right, mind, all right, body, be good. You know, I'm gonna go and work. You know, if there's problems, let me know. And so let's say there's moments where the mind and body, let's say these two siblings, they're playing with each other, in a sense of like they're playing with Lego. You know, they're playing with Lego, and let's say suddenly, right, the body starts throwing Legos at the mind. As if, let's say, a person goes into society and the hardships of, for example, addiction and various psychedelic traps that lie in society. So it's like the body is throwing Lego pieces at the mind, like the person in the physical biology is suffering, for example, you know, or something's happening, or it's cold. Let's say the person's, when they're outside and it's freezing, I'll use a different example. Let's say they're outside and it's super cold, and so that's when the body is throwing Lego at the mind, and the mind suddenly is like, hey, stop doing that, you know, and the body's like just laughing, you know, the body's out of control, animal instincts, let's say, are there. So then the mind begins demonstrating its authority, right? But the middle brother has the ego, the older brother knows the aftermath of egos, you know. So, for example, let's say somebody who does something, let's say an inner realm disturbance, let's say somebody who they are, I don't know, let's say they go through some hardship and they blame it on the world rather than on their ability, regardless of what hand they've been dealt, you know. So it's as if like it would be like, for example, someone having hatred for the world. That's like the mind hitting the body. That's like the mind throwing Lego at the body, right? And imagine the mind throws Lego at the body and the body starts crying. The younger sibling starts crying and the mind is laughing because the mind, through the cultural programming, has become oblivious to its own body, let's say. you know, that means the control. Right now, people have to literally fight the way the environment is telling them to exist with the way their nature is telling them to exist. Sorry, the cultural like it's a battle between the cultural program and the inner realm, true experience of the person, right? So imagine the body is crying, the mind has made a mistake. The person thought they were doing the right thing and suddenly they found themselves, oh my God, I've been hurting myself. Or I've been hurting the body of humanity or something like that. Then it's like when the body starts crying, the younger sibling starts crying, the older sibling comes in, the soul comes into the moment. And the soul sees what the mind has done, and first the soul goes to the body. This is how miracles happen in nature. The soul takes care of the body. When the body has stopped crying, the soul looks at the middle brother. It's like, how dare you not take care of the younger sibling? The rage of the soul is the only justice we can find here. The rage of nature, of the soul of nature. That is the one rebellion the species needs. And you know what it is? It's not the species that can do it. It's like the person just looks at the natural world and it's like, wake us up. Excuse me, I had to wait for the lakes under my eyelids to dry up. The opportunity of life really makes it worth expressing something in it. That means if the most basic metaphor was given, that we were to treat this whole world as a blank page and nobody knows what they're going to be unless they create it. That is the reality. It's as if the child plays with Lego, creates Lego, and then the child realizes, oh my God, the Lego pieces turn into ideas when you get older and enter university, right? So it's as if what was once just a simple connection, it's as if all of life can be said, or in all moments what is going on is a massive connecting of the dots, right? And how we connect the dots are like melodies, are like piano notes, and it's like the way we see meaning, that becomes the great melody of life. This was one of those things where I was so grateful that my eyes found the wisdom of the poet Rumi. And he had this quote where it was so simple. First, in one quote, he says, "You are the whole universe in ecstatic motion." And then he has this quote where he says, "Be living poetry. Be living poetry." That means do not chase the beautiful. Be it. And this doesn't mean beauty in regards to what, like, the culture thinks, you know. That means beauty has to do with just like nature, like a plant being itself, like a rose not trying to be a lily, for example, or a lily not trying to be a sequoia. It's like suddenly that escalated, you know, metaphor escalation, you know. So every human being has like their brain is some sort of sculpture so far that's been sculpted, you know. So this tech, it's like we're a technology, and we've experienced however amount of time we've been alive its usage. Right now, when we treat it even as an instrument, or as Rumi says, be living poetry, this means making all the content you find in your moment your ally. Right? That means you release the world from yourself hilariously. People are trying to, you know, get rid of their egos. This is like where the world, you're getting rid of. It's like you're like, sorry world, I've been disturbing you with my ego, and you like take your ego off, you know, as if you take your hat off. You know, you take your ideological hat off when you are in like a true, like in a real moment. You know, it's like when a moment is so real, it doesn't need any concept or idea behind it. It's just it just is, right? That purity of being is like a level, right, we all experience to some degree. That means the person becomes like, think of it this way, it's as if you are like, imagine, I don't know, in a warrior way, poetically, let's say you are a general on a battlefield, right? And your troops are scattered. They're scattered around. They're not in line, right? And it's as if there's been this massive kind of confusion. So what it is the person is doing is like a snowball effect of their, not just them having an identity, but your identity is where you're heading, right? That means for those people who they want to go to heaven, you have a religious identity, you know. For those who, for example, wanted to become one with nature, they have a druid and pantheistic identity, you know. So there is this thing that where your attention is pointed to, like aimed at, is kind of like where the emotions of how you feel now are coming from, right? It's as if where the person wants to go or how the person wants to remain. And I'm telling you, we are way more advanced behaviorally even. And like right now, the body language is locked down to one idea at a time, maybe, right? Because people want to just remain as a singular self, not realizing every day we wake up, it's like a new picture of our being. I feel it is a good time now for me to go into a quote tunnel of someone who I would say she is one of the most enlightened people on this planet. And she was, that is. And her name is Anandamayi Ma, if I said it correctly. I'm going to go into a quote tunnel and read some of her quotes and kind of how her inner realms were, like how she saw the world. And Here, I'll read the wiki. Anandamayi Ma was a Bengali saint, described by Shivananda Saraswati as the most perfect flower the Indian soil has produced. Precognition, faith, healing, and miracles were attributed to her by her followers. Paramahansa Yogananda translates the Sanskrit epithet Anandamayi as joy permeated in English. This name was given to her by her devotees in the 1920s to describe her perpetual state of divine joy. So that's a picture of her. Anandamayi Ma says, reality is beyond speech and thought. Only that which can be expressed in words is being said. But what cannot be put into language is indeed that which is. Anandamayi Ma says, Anandamayi Ma says, always bear this in mind. Everything is in God's hands, and you are His tool to be used by Him as He pleases. Try to grasp the significance of, in quotations, all is His, and you will immediately feel free from all burdens. What will be the result of your surrender to Him? None will seem alien. All will be your very own self with a capital S. Anandamayi Ma says, divine happiness, even the tiniest particle of a grain of it, never leaves one again. And when one attains to the essence of things and finds one's self dash this, what? Sorry guys, noise. Okay. Divine happiness, even the tiniest particle of a grain of it, never leaves one again. And when one attains to the essence of things and finds oneself, this is supreme happiness. When it is found, nothing else remains to be found. The sense of want will not awaken anymore, and the heart's torment will be stilled forever. Do not be satisfied with fragmentary happiness, which is invariably interrupted by shocks and blows of fate, but become complete, and having attained to perfection, be, in all caps, yourself. Anandamayi Ma says, how many lives are frittered away, age after age, in endless coming and going? Find out who you are. Anandamayi Ma says, when by the flood of your tears the inner and the outer have fused into one, you will find her whom you sought with such anguish, nearer than the nearest, the very breath of life, the very core of every heart. Wow, what an image. That means imagine you find the truth that is at the center of why the heart is beating. Anandamayi Ma says, who is it that loves and who that suffers? He alone stages a place with himself. He alone stages a play with himself. Who exists save him? The individual suffers because he perceives duality. It is duality which causes all sorrow and grief. Find the one everywhere and in everything, and there will be an end to pain and suffering. And guys, the reason why there's an end to pain and suffering, it's incredibly hilarious. You know why? Because the individual and the cosmic activity, they become inseparable. So there is no self to love anything, no self to suffer. It is being herself. The true, before the word true had to mean anything true. Anandamayi Ma says saints are like trees. They do not call to anyone, neither do they send anyone away. They give shelter to whoever cares to come, be it a man, woman, child, or an animal. If you sit under a tree, it will protect you from the weather, from the scorching sun as well, from the pouring rain, and it will give you flowers and fruit. Whether a human being enjoys them or a bird tastes of them matters little to the tree. Its produce is there for anyone who comes and takes it. So that's a good metaphor for like a liberated being, because when you have nothing to lose, guess what? You have everything to give. You can give undisturbed. That means imagine somebody, imagine there was a child born on this planet and the child's like, I want to master, giving. And people are like, yeah man, just give and you've mastered it, But no, what if there was an art, What if there was an art to listening to nature, Yogis weren't nature whisperers, they were the whispers of nature. They were nature whispering, Anandamayi Ma says, when the mind is full of worldly desires, it is their very nature to confuse the mind. Withdraw the mind from outer things and turn it inwards. Anandamayi Ma says, for one who knows me, I am one with him. For one who wants to know me, I am very near to him. And for one who does not know me, I am a beggar before him. That means it's like our cultural program, the ideological programs we entertain, they make us stop seeing that it's like, how can a person be like, oh, look at these flowers, they're beautiful, and then see human nature, right? Like sometimes when I look at it, I'm like, people, it's hilarious. People don't know where we are. If people really saw where we were, we wouldn't be living civilization like this. Like truly, if we comprehended the magnitude of the implication of where we find ourselves, right? And where language has been invented, or as I heard Noam Chomsky incredibly say, of course Noam Chomsky's a giant, but I'll tell you, he said language was imported. He used that verb, and I found that just so enlightening. That it could be that our ability is not from here, what our body is. So it's as if our bodies are from here, but how our minds move is not from here. So we feel like, as even in Christian wisdom, it was ascribed to Christ that he had said to be in the world but not of it. You know, it's as if we are in the world, the body's in the world, but is the mind from here? That means somebody saying, where is the here from? Like, that means, where's the here and now from? Where can I find the here and now? Or all those schools of thought where it's hilarious. It's pretty much in the school of thought, the whole school of thought is come to the present moment. Come to the present. You know? It's like Zen masters and everybody. It's like, you know, it's you know what it is? It's like just wisdom has been telling the creatures on this planet, bewildered by their own creations, to just chill out. And then they'll be able to access a totally different way. You know, because when your mind's life activates, you don't get that much inspired by, I would say, physical progress, right? So physical progress is like you move something, right? Let's say let's say we can totally copy paste, you know, the inner realm can copy paste what's in the outer realm and remodify it, realign it. We should treat nature as a very advanced, unknown type of communication, that the whole effort of all advanced communicators in this universal sector is to study it. Right? That means, imagine we found there were beings in other dimensions. Imagine we realized they were aliens, you know, in invisible realms, right? And imagine we had a conversation with all of them and we're like, hey guys, I don't know what you guys are doing, but we human beings want to discover the nature of what it is and why all of this here is here. Do you know what I mean? That would be an advanced extraterrestrial civilization, an extraterrestrial civilization that comes down to Earth to have a conversation. You know, what is this thing of throwing metal? You know, I think the only place metal should be, you know, allowed to be thrown is at like a heavy metal concert. You know what I mean? Like, anyways, our attention moves in a changing world. Like, it's as if we are changing in a changing system, where it's like a dream inside a dream, but it's like a reality inside a reality. Or as Plato would say, as above, so below. Anandamayi Ma says, widen your shriveled heart, make the interests of others your own, and serve them as much as you can by sympathy, kindness, presence, and so forth. So long as one enjoys the things of this world and has needs and wants, it is necessary to minister to the needs of one's fellow men. Otherwise, one cannot be called a human being. Whenever you have the opportunity, give to the poor, feed the hungry, nurse the sick, do service as a religious duty, and you will come to know by direct perception that the person served, the one who serves, and the act of service are separate only in appearance. I'm just clapping for the miracle I just witnessed. So guys, this second part of what Anandamayi Ma is saying is that this is the true fruits of Bhakti Yoga. I can say it now. You see, people want to do religious things and then be good, right? But this is like, Anandamayi Ma is saying, she's saying like, serve your realm. And you will, at some point in this serving of the realm, recognize who you are serving, and who it is that is you that is serving is only in appearance separate. That means it's like once you abide by your nature, it's like there's universal authority. But if you abide by something that is not your nature, karma, the lords of karma, like, not the lords of karma, but the karma is like, get out of here. It's like, you know, you're in this world once, you're trying to be something else, it's like, give me a break. Anandamayi Ma says joys and sorrows are time-born and cannot last. Therefore, do not be perturbed by these. The greater the difficulties and obstructions, the more intense will be your endeavor to cling to His feet, and the more will your prayer increase from within. And when the time is ripe, you will gain mastery over this power. Anandamayi Ma says, inquire, who am I? And you will find the answer. Look at a tree. From one seed arises a huge tree. Forth it comes numerous seeds, each one of which in its turn grows into a tree. No two fruits are alike, yet it is one life that throbs in every particle of the tree. So it is the same Atman everywhere. That means energy has to stop discriminating against itself. You know, I think in secular culture, let's say the word energy, right? That's literally another way of saying soul. And let me explain. The idea of the soul is the transmigratory, a transmigratory, timeless being that is endlessly incarnating. This is the concept of reincarnation, as if like a three-dimensional being is reincarnating in two dimensions endlessly, right? And in the first law of thermodynamics, there's a saying where it says, it's stated as energy cannot be created or destroyed, it just changes from one form to another. This is another way, energy is another word for soul. But soul is like energy plus consciousness. That means when energy becomes aware of itself, oh my God, solar energy right there. You know? S-O-U-L-A-R though. Anandamayi Ma says, wherever God may keep you at any time, from there itself must you undertake the pilgrimage to God realization. In all forms, in action and non-action is He, the One Himself. While attending to your work with your hands, keep yourself bound to Him by sustaining japa, the constant remembrance of Him in your heart and mind. In God's empire, it is forgetfulness of Him that is detrimental. The way to peace lies in the remembrance of Him and of Him alone. And when Anandamayi Ma, she's saying Him alone, this Him, guys, is not a Him with a Facebook profile of endless religious language. It is in some sense how your universe is alive. And when we realize this, to our minds, these little creatures on this rock in the middle of nowhere, it's the unknown moving the known. I'm telling you, it's so cool when you notice this, how much of your life has just happened and gone forth. You know? It's like if you're in a world once and you're a temporary being, it's like the least you can do is like trust it in advance, you know? Like Anandamayi Ma says, in which direction you may turn your gaze, you will find one eternal, indivisible being manifested. Yet it is not all easy to detect this presence, because He interpenetrates everything. excuse me. Shri Anandamayi Ma says, she says, I find one vast garden spread out all over the universe. All plants, all human beings, all heart, mind, bodies are about in this garden in various ways. Each has its own uniqueness and beauty. Their presence and variety give me great delight. Every one of you adds with his special feature to the glory of the garden. Yeah, I mean, 8 billion, random popping out of nature, creature. It's like Alan Watts says, the trees appled, it's like the planet people. And it makes no sense where we are all like different parts of this future collective brain, let's say, and we're fighting. It's like we are there's something very unnatural about how the human being is being natural. Anandamayi Ma says, either melt by devotion the sense of separateness, or burn it by knowledge. For what is it that melts or burns? Only that which by its nature can be melted or burnt, namely the idea that something other than yourself exists. What will happen then? You come to know yourself. Anandamayi Ma says, it may be asked, why there cannot be one and the same path for all? Because he reveals himself in infinite ways and forms. Verily, the one is all of them. Right? That means there is the reason why it's not like one path for everyone, and because it's like ultimately it doesn't matter when you realize we are that. And when I say we are that, it's not like we are it's as if like we were identifying with just on the finger level, then we identified with the palm, then we identified with the arm, then we identified with the whole body, then we identified with the whole universe. So it's as if like we are pretty much inside the imagination of truth. Which means truth is here. That means it's kind of like wondering when you have a dream, who is that dream for? And then you feel your unknown eyes. And I would say when you find your unknown eyes, there is no need for a third eye. The third eye is just how the mind is being the whole moment. People took it too seriously. Maybe there is something like the pineal gland has some sort of energetic significance. Maybe the pineal gland energetically in another interdimensional way is like glowing with truth or something. I don't know. But I'm saying anyways, the one is all of them, as Anandamayi Ma says. Anandamayi Ma says there's one unchanging, indivisible reality which, though unmanifest, reveals itself in infinite multiplicity and diversity. Anandamayi Ma says, try to treat with equal love all the people with whom you have relations. Thus the abyss between myself and yourself will be filled in, which is the goal of all religious worship. Anandamayi Ma says, precious gems are profoundly buried in the earth and can only be extracted at the expense of great labor. Anandamayi Ma says, those who desire to remain intoxicated by reality do not require artificial intoxicants. Indulging in false things will only increase falsity. For every direction is indeed infinite. Those who desire the truly genuine thing proceed of themselves with great intensity so as to progress in their sadhana. Anandamayi Ma says, to believe in him under any particular form is not enough. Accept him in his numberless forms, shapes, and modes of being, in everything that exists. Aim at the whole, and all of your actions will be whole. Just a comment on the previous quote. See, it is true what she's saying, but at the same time, she's saying the truth in the room cannot be an illusion, right? That means Anandamayi Ma, it's like we're trying to figure out truth, and she's remarkably telling us it's in myriad forms, infinite forms. So if everything is infinite forms of like the truth, right? So technically every person alive is an infinite form of the truth. If the truth expresses itself in infinite forms, and we have a form, right? We are like a finite awareness of the infinite forms of the one truth expressing itself. But I feel Anandamayi Ma is also from her own inner realm saying that those who desire the truly genuine thing proceed of themselves with great intensity. That means for those who know, of course they can go towards it. For those who don't, it's a different game. And when it comes to intoxication in reality, I haven't given this talk yet, but I've made notes of it. It's called the sober state. I call it the sober state. That means the sober state is a sentence that there's a pun intended, you know, and the sober state is the sober state of mind, and also the idea of states being sober. And if we can advance, you see, if human social behavior just upgrades, right, then it, rather than us judging each other in society to extract value for our identities, we will in some sense try to understand, right? Because it's like those people who assume they already know, it's as if it's like really, in a world this big you already know. It's like, good for you. But do you know what I mean? So the effort of understanding, when the person taps into wanting to understand things, not egoically for a result, but just for the nature of seeing what is it, where am I? Like these basic questions give you a sincere access to project a sincere rhythm in the intellect, I find. Anyways, guys, I need 1 minute breather. I'll be back. Okay, to continue with the quote tunnel, a few quotes left. Anandamayi Ma says to believe in him under any particular form is not enough. Did I read this? Accept him in his numberless forms, shapes, and modes of being. Everything that exists. Aim at the whole, and all your actions will be whole. Okay, no. Anandamayi Ma says, in him is everything. Him you must try to find. That means she's pointing to truth. Anandamayi Ma says, even afterward, though the dance of creation change around me in the hall of eternity, I shall be the same. Wow. And guys, what I'm reading is from AZ quotes, pretty much. Like, that's the website. And let me see what the second page has. The second page has a few. I'll read this too. Anandamayi Ma says the same inexpressible truth is experienced in two ways, as self-luminous silence or as the eternal play of the one. Wow. Yep. Glad someone agrees with my advanced communication idea. I'm joking. Okay. Anandamayi Ma says, in water and on land, in trees, shrubs, and creepers everywhere in the whole universe abides my beloved. Further, all the various forms and modes of being that we behold, are they not expressions of my beloved? For there is none save him. He is smaller than the smallest and greater than the greatest. See, that's a universe. See, this is language from a universal being, or even beyond shape being. Right? Anandamayi Ma says, as you love your own body, so regard everyone as equal to your own body. When the supreme experience supervenes, everyone's service is revealed as one's own service. Wow, everything we have thought we've done to the world, we've thought we've done to others, or others have done to us, at the end we're gonna see it's all been to our own self. Anandamayi Ma says, experience supervenes, everyone's service is revealed as one's own service. Call it a bird, an insect, an animal, or a man. Call it by any name you please. One serves one's own self in every one of them. That means this kid named Midoriya in the wallpaper, he's realized that the dandy, like the sunflowers he's holding, is himself. You know, all for one for all, liberation, you know, enlightenment. Anandamayi Ma says, acquire a firm will and the utmost patience. Anandamayi Ma says, single-minded devotion engenders deep thought, which expresses itself in action. The Lord's light descends on the devotee. His power awakens in him, and as a result, profound inner inquiry blossoms forth. His power awakens in him, and as a result, profound inner inquiry blossoms forth. Yeah. It's this single-mindedness can arise whether you ask yourself, who am I? Or you ask, where is this place? Or whatever. It's just your attention notices the moment where it's all held in for your being. There's a quote from this poet named Mira Alfasa, and this quote's here on this page. She says, do not pretend, be. Do not promise, act. Do not dream, realize. as if when it's like the completion of the other two becomes the realization. And lastly, the last quote from this quote tunnel, Anandamayi Ma says, "He alone knows to whom he will reveal himself under which form, by what path and in what manner he attracts any particular man to himself with great force is incomprehensible to the human intellect. The path differs indeed for different pilgrims." So metaphysically, she's saying, like an invisible collective being, imagine a cloud was moving human beings. Okay, so it's like every person's movement in a society where the whole society as a whole moment is being one collective being. It's as if it's everything is that being. It's as if like pretty much Anandamayi Ma is speaking to us as if we are a cell in the body of the universe, right? And we can't see the whole body of the universe, but we're simultaneously being a part of it. And it's like a red blood cells being like, how do we realize we're the whole body? Do you know? It's like as long as you identify with the red blood cell, you're the red blood cell. If you identify as the universal, you're the universal. You know, this is where the freedom that comes from moving beyond the language threshold, where your principal universal philosophy can just instantly shift, because there is the thinker. It can't exist as a thought anymore, right? The thinker has realized it's not a thought. Thought has been in this unknown observance, right? And no school of thought can own the observer. Like that's the mystery, the hard problem of consciousness. From why did we even evolve with these traits? Like why couldn't we have evolved in a way where we could literally shut off our pain? That means a person could feel pain, but why did we evolve to not to adjust to that, right? So what was it about pain that in the evolutionary development of a creature that adjusted its hands to like the fruit of a tree, or like its body to the environment or whatever? Do you know why didn't it get rid of pain? Because pain was an incredible feedback system, you know, of what was going on. And it could be that a person entertaining a collective idea feels pain, and the pain is not theirs, right? So it's as if the person was so divine and went into such oneness that their body was no longer the sensations of just one individual, right? So it's as if it's like, where's your antenna tuned towards, you know, or where's your antenna pointed towards, right? Imagine if the brain was an antenna. And for some situations, individualism maybe is required. The person has to constantly, like how you refresh the browser to see if there's a new email in your inbox. The person has to do the same with the reality, believe it or not. You have to constantly wake up and see, okay, how's today gonna happen? You know, and it just happens, you know. So it's all like the whole mystical search to truth. Identity is just the language of, you know, the inner and outer realms like meshed together and fused. Anyways, let's get out of this quote time. I honestly, Anandamayi Ma, guys, there's this quote she has. Where is it? It was there we go. I gotta post this. Did I post it before? No, okay. So anyways, back to the topic. There's so many different types of human beings. Some prioritize emotions, some prioritize the intellect. And if we want to emotionally advance, we have to be playful, and we got to make civilization fun and just efficient, right? Efficiency is its own thing. That's like the most important thing. You know, that means it's like, doesn't matter what you see, if whenever you want to do something, you regard to find the efficient vision. For me, that's a success. It's never something just alone, like the person only has to work hard and get it. It's not. It's like how the whole world is moving in accordance to where the values of the world are moving, you know, and how endlessly values are simulated, you know, where there was this guy on this show, I think it was Dragon's Den or something, and the guy came and gave a very high evaluation for his company, and these beacons of capitalism looked at him and they're like, hey, how do you come up with an evaluation like that? And the guy's like, evaluations for companies are subjective. The guy stood his ground. Instead of feeling ashamed and being like pushed into a corner, he's like, it depends. It's like, if I have a burger and you have a bar of gold, if we are here, yeah, you have more value. But if me and you were in an island, who would have the more value, right? So it's also based on where an idea is implemented that suggests its value. That means all ideas can be valuable. Sometimes an idea can be valuable, but it has to, like Pokemon, evolve, and then it's like that version of it can become valuable, right? So it could be that when an idea is incomplete, it's missing, it needs to partner up, right? That means a design infusion, you know. So this realignment I'm speaking about, I feel it's like, as Anandamayi Ma says, the same inexpressible truth is experienced in two ways, as self-luminous silence or as the eternal play of the one. We have to use that angle where Anandamayi Ma says the eternal play of the one. That eternal play of the one, there's a word for it in the Medic thought. It's called Leela. Leela, L-E-E-L-A. Okay, so Leela means the play. It's as if all of life is this grand play, but it's a cosmic play, you know. That means it's as if it was hilarious to me where it's like a person, it's like, how can acting be taught, you know, where the whole universe is acting. You know, everything is acting, you know, and direction is just being conscious of how an action can happen, really. So, anyways, I see that ultimately an evolutionary return to nature. What that means is we were unconscious in nature, then we had an unconscious body in nature, an unconscious self. So first there was an unconscious work, then an unconscious self. Then from the unconscious self, we went to a conscious self. We became aware we are this body, and we became aware that our biological body is separate from the earth to have the identity, right? So now, by having this separation from the earth, that means we have, right now as I'm speaking, all human beings are in the conscious self phase. Now the only phase left is the collective, the conscious world. That means we are going to, first, all the individual human beings are going to experience collective mindhood, then we're going to experience our collective mindhood with nature's mindhood, right? So right now we are like embodying just a biological organ, you know, like this, a biological body, right? But I would say in the very future, it may perhaps become the case where it goes beyond bodyhood, right? That means right now it's way more real for us that we are living as bodies, right? Embodied creatures. But in the future, based on how sensitive we become to the mind's life and how the mind's life really paves its own path into the future, builds its, you know, I just, anyways, I just hope we get to the castles in the sky phase of our civilization. self-realization. That would be incredible. When we get to that point, that would be, I would say, the ultimate, a sort of grand victory. Civilization 2.0, if that happens, that would be like, no way. It would be the best case scenario. But if it doesn't happen, there's also various backup systems. It's like there's 8 billion brains on this planet, and 8 billion brains not just only generate their self, they generate the world that self generation is in, right? So we are 8 billion hidden angles to the world, and if we communicate and share our inner realms, these angles become unhidden, and I feel ultimately we stop playing the game of intellectual precision. It has to be exactly how the outer realms is, or emotional stability would be more like, okay, the inner realms their voices have to be heard too, So it's like this idea of like the balance of, it's like, how do we maneuver as no longer just a psychological, biological animal in the space-time continuum, but as a psychological phenomenon which is noticing itself inseparable from the whole moment, right? It is literally like Goku going Super Saiyan and having no other way of explaining it other than being the new thing, So this realignment is like those who are intellectually focused. You have the sword. You're using your sword first rather than your shield. So practice your shield. Practice shielding the world from your own intensity. I'm telling you, the mind can be so advanced that if it chooses to be cruel, it can literally like throw language like blades, like a ninja. So there is something that it's like I feel like we should just evoke in our cultural program the art of advancing the communication of the species, as if everybody is a performance of some sort of activity in the universe. So the intellect is like, let's say, the sword, and the emotions are the shield. It's like the person can be in a situation where it's like, let's say they're gullible and they've been convinced, but their emotions are telling them no. So it's as if like the emotion suddenly becomes the shield, right? But these are just states. We're ultimately creatures that go endlessly. Our states of mind change, and the content in the outer realms also changes us. So it's as if the children, the future generation, the way the world is going to sculpt them into a human being to themselves is going to be very different than how the world is sculpting us to ourselves now, right? So I think eventually a multidimensional understanding is necessary, and if we start now, they won't have to do it, and they'll thank us. The future generations, I mean. If we start building an advanced civilization, they'll open their eyes and they'll be like, okay, at least they started it, To see, and when I say advanced civilization, it's all just to see how advanced humanity's collective possible effort can be. Just to see. For me, it doesn't matter if we build advanced civilization and it only lasts like 5 minutes, and then it all, like some extraterrestrial thing happens, it breaks down. For me, I just want to see what that would look like, right? And that is enough for whatever kind of feeling I have to just kind of go, just to see where it leads, right? Because why else are we in the void? To do something probably with this sight, as whatever kind of constitution to our being we fathom. And I will leave the audience off with one last quote from Rishi Vyasa, where he says, "Time is the seed of the universe." So when you reverse engineer back into time, or how time has been contained for you, you're reverse engineering back into a presence of energy before any sort of individualized attention could move to identify. So that presence is being, it's nature being before us trying to be like nature. And I feel we are just going. The species seems to be moving towards inevitably like a point where we're going to be like, okay, how long are we going to just be biological individual creatures? Is there something more? Do you know, is it going to be a technological crossroad? Is it going to be a going back to nature kind of crossroad? Is it going to be an interdimensional crossroad? Or is it going to be like a complete cultural, like things happen, like a behavioral revolution? You know what I mean? Like what's it going to be? So there's just, it's like the mystery of the world returns and the pilot carries on. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I'll be on Discord for those interested. Namaste.